So what is a bearing spacer? Well, to put it simply, it's a spacer that is used between the two tapered wheel bearings. So instead of relying on the castle nut torque, the spacer allows for an ultra-low bearing play while also reducing rolling resistance by quite a bit. That very low play allows things like pad knockback to not happen. It lowers grease temperatures on track, extends the life of the bearings, and lowers rolling resistance by a huge amount. Essentially, all modern car wheel bearings feature some sort of spacer like this one. To start off, this is done with new wheel bearings and a completely cleaned hub. The 1LE bearing is installed, followed by the bearing spacer. The hub goes on, then the outer wheel bearing plus the washer and castle nut are tightened down. A quick torque to about 20 pound-feet, and it's obvious that the bearing resistance is way too high, so the bearing needs to be lengthened a little bit. Putting a mark on the bearing spacer is a good way to manage how many rotations you are going in or outward. The spacer is lengthened, and the set screw is tightened down. The stack up is then reinstalled and torqued to spec. In this case, I started at 20 pound-feet. I think I got really lucky because on about my second attempt, it looks like this bearing spacer length is perfect. So I'm looking for about 1/1000th of an inch or zero play in the hub. My dial indicator shows about 1/2 thousandths, so that is right on the money. It's hard to explain how little resistance the bearings have now, yet there's almost zero play. So now to the install. I used some fine Scotch-Brite to remove any rust on the spindle. A quick solvent clean. Some wheel bearing grease is applied everywhere except for the rear seal surface. DRP bearing spacer is dropped into the hub, followed by a grease-packed inner wheel bearing. Then the DRP low drag seal gets hammered on. A few whacks with my stainless puck, and the seal is installed. The hub is installed and filled up with some grease. Make sure not to add too much grease. A grease-packed outer wheel bearing is installed with the washer and the castle nut. The castle nut is torqued to 20 pound-feet to start off. If the cotter pin hole doesn't line up, torque it a little bit further until it does. This still requires a cotter pin for safety, so just install one like you normally would. My Joe's Racing hubcap is installed and bolted up. I checked the play on the very top of a 13-inch rotor, and the play is about 4/1000th of an inch, about 1/3 of what it was before. That's pretty good. I'd like to thank Scott at BigBreakUpgrade.com for getting his hubs, the ones I use here, set up for these bearing spacers. Thanks for watching this quick video. I know I've been kind of bad on releasing videos lately, I'm just swamped with work right now. If you liked this content, you can support me on Patreon or follow me on Instagram.